Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it is the third day of June 2024. And welcome to our show today. We're going to have an interesting show today. We've got Bob Terry on at 9 o'clock with Jeff Bongiorno and Jaeson Ikes, my cybersecurity guys, the extraordinaire, and the ones that have been working on the election integrity stuff. And I think these guys are probably at the top of my list right there for working on election integrity. I love them all. They're wonderful. And in the second hour, we have Jason Jones from Border 911. And I think that this is going to be a lot of fun. I've heard Jason speak, and he is one of the most inspiring speakers, hard-hitting speakers that I have listened to through the pursuits of truth here. So this is going to be really fun. And he actually works on the border and is fast and furious. Maybe that's the wrong word to use, but I mean, he is out there fighting for children every single day. So I want to bring on our wonderful guest this morning, but I want to introduce Bob Terry. For the past 25 years, no matter what position in life, he's been the lead technologist, MBA, that has performed the industry research in the field of cybersecurity, threat detection and reporting, identified and documented third-party industry problems and issues, defined a new set of capabilities requirements that includes writing a U.S. patent, then personally created programmed 100% of the proprietary code using no open source software whatsoever. All solutions were 100% developed within the Microsoft C++ programming environment using AGIL before it was defined. All C and C++ solutions address Microsoft operating systems, security, and threat. This is a guy that's like super involved. I mean, there's a difference between IT guys and true programmers or people who code. Everybody there knows that I own a tech company, and I'm very familiar with the different qualifications or skill sets within the tech community. He's got an incredible resume. He is the only individual in the history of the United States information technology who designed, patented, and personally developed solutions deployed throughout the White House Executive Office of the President 2001 to 2008, which was also used by the CIA, who managed the Weapons of Mass Destruction Commission, based the principles of the human immune system, and never required antivirus updates. I can post his resume so you can see who it is, but at this point in time, I want to bring these guys on so we can get right to it. Morning, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good morning.
What's happening, Jason, Jeff, and Bob world this morning?
Thank you for that introduction. Well, another day in paradise. Another day in tyranny.
A little bit of a delay here.
Yeah, there's a delay. Bob, can you try to unmute your microphone? I think you're muted. I think the muting is on your side, but it might be wrong. Oh, there you go. We gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, a little bit. There's quite a delay here, so we're going to have to really be careful about stepping on each other today.
Definitely hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. All right.
So gentlemen, let's just go right at it. I know this is breaking. We're going to talk about the vulnerabilities that have been exposed in Microsoft. And I'm just going to give you the floor a minute so that we've got one less person talking so we can get this thing out there.
So, who do you want first? Hello?
What's that, Bob?
On?
You're breaking up. I think
discovered. Do you want me to explain what I've discovered?
Yes, please.
Well, first, I'd like to clarify, it's not a vulnerability, and I stay away from terms that are used in virus, in malware.
Guys, I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and call him and put him on, because we're going to have problems with this connection. Hang on just a minute, okay? This is what happens when you're real news.
All right.
You know, real news by real people for real people at the kitchen table. So I'm going to call you, Bob, and we're going to do it that way, okay?
All right. So I stay on here and you call me and I'll answer, correct?
You can just go ahead and leave, and I'll just call you directly, and we'll do it by phone.
Okay.
Okay, so we do this sometimes. This works out okay. So hey, let's try this way.
All right. How about now?
That is way better.
Okay. So if I could go ahead and explain very quickly, I do not use the terms associated with a virus or malware. It is not a vulnerability. This is intentionally designed from Microsoft. All of this is of my discovery. I describe as the most genius software engineering I've encountered in my entire career. What I have discovered is when the release of Vista occurred in 2006, that operating system in terms of security was a major new design brought forward. And to make a long story short, before Vista was Windows XP, and the latest associated server was Windows 2003. Vista and 2003, which were the systems that were utilized when I did the work for the White House and the CIA Managed Weapons of Mass Destruction Commission, those were the two key operating systems used. The security architecture behind XP and Server 2003 and all operating systems before was totally different in terms of what was released in Vista. And to make a long story short, I'm sure everyone here has heard the term firewall.
Yeah.
Well, in Windows XP, firewalls, which control communications, they're managed by establishing rules, defined rules. There are inbound communication rules, there are outbound communication rules. In Windows XP and Server 2003, each security vendor could truly write an independent firewall, and it would access a term inside of firewalls. It's called a network adapter tables, and that's where all of your network interface cards are installed. The firewalls in XP in 2003 could obtain direct access to those adapter tables. In Vista, what happened was Microsoft introduced a completely new design in a completely different programming environment to where those security vendors no longer had the direct access to that was available in Windows XP and the Server 2003. From XP forward, and all the server operating systems forward from XP, you must use their development environment. Now, the bottom line is this. Inside of a Microsoft computer, corporations like McAfee, Symantec, Trend Micro, when they establish their firewall, they have to use what's called the firewall API.dll. it's only in two places in a Microsoft operating system. It's in what's known as the System 32 and the SysWile 64. What has happened is when a third party puts their version of a firewall on Microsoft, they're using the actual programming interface to the operating system, which is in turn passing instructions to the adapter table and controlling the rules. The truth is that Microsoft, their security is never off. And what makes up the programming interface, DLL, firewall API.dll, is actually in at least 30 to 35 operating system processes or Microsoft applications. It's even inside of the Windows Explorer, MS Edge, and because Microsoft has a security partnership alliance with Google, it's inside of Google Chrome. Now, here's what all this means. No matter what security you have from a third party, which all of the users think, well, we'll install a third-party security system. We don't really depend on Microsoft, that, our security system will take over and ensure our security. Wrong. They have to go through Microsoft, which is handling everything. And because these 30 to 35 processes have the firewall API.dll, Microsoft is in complete control of all security. No matter what you install on a Microsoft operating system and server, they can literally override anything happening at any time. The reason why this is such genius, the reason why it's not a backdoor, is that a backdoor is a computer program that is initiated. It starts, it opens a computer port, it waits for a connection, and that program bypasses all security. That's hence the backdoor. This is the most genius, brilliant engineering that I discovered. This is not a backdoor. They are wielding the security of the computer. They are using the security. They are literally dynamically creating a rule which opens a doorway in the security. Then they transmit, download, do whatever they want to do. Then they dynamically delete the rule. It closes the door, and there is no log activity whatsoever that this has happened. So it's incredible. It's something that when I designed what I wrote for the White House and for the CIA WMD Commission, I was using the previous operating systems. I went off and got into very intense communications. I came back around to doing R&D. I started in 2017. It took 5.5 years to uncover what I discovered. It's very, very intense programming. They use the most intense programming environments. In this particular realm of Microsoft development, you have to design code in what's called Unicode, and you have to write it at the binary level. So that rules out a lot of people in security. But the truth is that what I've discovered, there really isn't any real security in terms of people with a layered defense, or people that go from the defense in depth architecture to zero trust. That doesn't matter. None of that matters, because all of the Microsoft internal operating system processes and applications that have this firewall API interlinked into it, they have what's called the system privileges. They have 100% privileges And because they have rights, that activity is allowed to proceed. And furthermore, all of the pathway destinations between the source and the destination IP address, that's all established. So it really and truly, for the past, since the release of Vista in 2006, this has been active, and I use a term, I call it being hidden in plain sight. The sad, terrible part of what's happened to our country is really no intense cybersecurity is being developed in this country. Microsoft has moved 100% of the development environment to Israel, and the other antivirus vendors, the ones that you hear of, their engineers and managers are in India. Here we have the United States evolving around computers and IT, and the core that drives all of this IT, the programming, all of it, is happening overseas. So it's just terrible that there's no true research going on in this country anymore. I mean, intense research in the areas that should be looked at. And it's just I'm sorry to say this, but the billions that are being spent per month on cybersecurity with this active inside of the system is just a waste of time. So that's what I can say in a nutshell.
That is incredible and shocking. So they have the privileges for anything. They can walk into your computer. They could put things in there. They could change things or take things.
Let me say something to you.
Is that correct?
Yes, you're very correct. And let me say something to you. I choose my words very carefully. I'm not being melodramatic. Microsoft has some very, very, well, everybody, really, there's not a day that goes by that Bill Gates is not burned in effigy. But they've actually, through the years, pulled off some pretty slick technology. A lot of people don't know that Microsoft is used not only in all of the stock markets, but in all the clearinghouses and trading houses, because there's certain development environments in C++ for high-speed data processing, and I'm not talking about a database. I'm talking about streamlining code for efficiency and processing. So Microsoft is a key element throughout our entire banking financial industry and worldwide. Furthermore, Microsoft is key in all of our industrial controls, and there are Microsoft computers that are managing the control panels and data centers to power plants and to nuclear facilities. Now, I'm not kidding about any of this. This is not a joke. What I have discovered, these people that have pulled this off, these people are truly geniuses. They're not to be underestimated. From what I've seen and what I have the facts on, and by the way, nothing that you'd ever read in my research is my opinion. I go out and I verify through third-party events what's really happening. Now, since I brought this up, I cannot tell you the people that, have me on their gun side, especially Microsoft certified engineers and corporations that, support networks with Microsoft. They don't want this to be true. They want it to go away. They do not want any of this to be true. But the fact is, whoever's behind this has been moving slowly and cautiously. They're not fools. They're not to be underestimated. And this capability allows whoever's behind this to install anything at any time. They can create a forensic trail. They can make it look like the user did it. Okay. This is a fact. This can be proven. And with the research I've turned over to Jeff and company, we've had some former highly ranked people that do not want to be named, and rightfully so, because they're concerned about their livelihood and their families, etc. in terms of being able to be gainfully employed, but they have confirmed that I am correct and it is real. And the problem here, more than anything else, here's the biggest problem. I'm going to use a term, and you're going to start laughing, and you're going to think it's an emotional term. It's not. Whoever knew about this and authorized it, I have a term for these people, and I refer to them as highly educated idiots. Now, let me explain to you why they're idiots. Their arrogance and ego must have got to them. Anybody that studied the dynamics to allow this to happen, there's no one safe. No one. Let's just go for broke and say, all right, without substantial, that the Democrats are behind it and they're trying to target Republicans. Well, that's kind of a dumb way of looking at this, because whoever's behind this is collecting information on everybody. And I'm talking about, the Democrats. I'm talking about, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. I mean, someone that would authorize this, I really believe they just can't see the forest for the trees. But to use, a comparison, anyone that studied history, they know that J. Edgar Hoover, he was director of the FBI for 48 years. They confirmed he had a file on everyone. With what's happening here, whoever's behind this has got the information on everybody. And the terrible part about this, those industries that believe they have to truly secure their information from the government, such as the oil, natural gas, and petroleum that's been targeted by the Biden administration. All of their information, it's just been compromised. Everything. So we're in a mess. We're in a mess where whoever authorized something to happen, and everyone is eventually going to become victims of what I've discovered. And by the way, we have tests that people can run, to prove this is happening. So there's a lot of people, that just are really angry that I dug deep and found all of this. But the fact of the matter is, Forbes magazine came out with an article, I think last summer. These security certifications, all of these different things, these CISSPs, etc. I'm sorry, people are going to be offended over what I'm about to say, but none of that really matters. It doesn't matter. What matters is research, digging into these computer programs and digging into these systems, creating a series of programs and events to track really what's happening. It doesn't matter what they write in specifications. It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is identifying for yourself really what's happening. And the last thing I can say is here, there's the technology, which is just unbelievable. But this was introduced in 2006. It's 2024. None of the antivirus vendors, the security vendors, no one has brought this to the public. No one has said anything. And being an MBA, a pretty good one doing case analysis, if you go back and you look at the defection of Edward Snowden, you look at the CIA WikiLeaks, you look at the stolen NSA tools, you'll look at 11, 12, 13 years ago, all these whistleblowers coming forward. Microsoft and all the security vendors, their fix behind that is moving all the core security offshore. And while I believe that the Israeli engineers behind Microsoft and the Indian engineers behind the rest of Symantec, McAfee, Norton, Trend Micro, Cisco, Juniper, all of those engineers, they're very, very bright people, but they're probably, I'm pretty confident they're also saying, well, if the Americans can't figure out what's going on inside their operating system, then, the heck with them. Just the heck with them. And so that's the way that they have essentially stopped all the whistleblowing. They've moved everything offshore. We're in a mess. We're in a mess.
And did I hear you correctly? You said that they're behind running our nuclear programs as well.
Well, the Microsoft computers, are deployed. You can very easily, you can run an internet search, okay, on Microsoft involved in our electric power grid, and you see they have a software specifically designed to help manage and control our power grids. This is in everything. And I'm sorry to say, I know there's I haven't met him, but another security expert is listening, and they're going to want to talk about, well, we've got firewalls, network firewalls, and we've got, hardware based, and we're looking at everything. You haven't dug deep into what Microsoft has done. The brilliance behind all of this is being initiated from the inside out, with all the privileges required and all the pathways established. And when it comes to any corporation that's a business partner with Microsoft, they have to adhere to their business partnership agreement. They can't interfere with the internal events of what's happening. Now, I hope you don't mind me saying that.
You say whatever you want. This is a no censorship platform here.
What I'm trying to say is the only way that I could prove that this was really happening is write, very intense programs to bring it to the screen. And why it's so terribly difficult, this is another important fact. There's so many moving parts here, okay? What's so difficult about this is probably everyone is aware of when Microsoft was sued by the government and they tried to break them up as a monopoly in 1999 and 2000. Well, people think that that's, gone, and, that's 24 years ago. But there were a lot of events unfolded back then to cause this problem to happen. And one of the ways that Microsoft beat being broken up is that they agreed to publish certain specifications to allow vendors to compete inside their operating system. And so what they did was they published these specifications. Well, that covered the legal aspects for Microsoft to not be broken up. But all these years, the specifications have been wrong. They won't work. You may write a program, but it'll crash in a matter of hours, and it just won't work. So this was literally just incredibly difficult, tedious work to finally come up, with a stable system to where it won't run 24/7. And so this is how, I was able to provide the PowerPoint with the screenshots at the end. And since 2017, Microsoft has been spending $1 billion a year. This is documented now. You can find this. I have it. I can send it to you. $1 billion a year on their internal development of security, which it is obviously a big deal. They refer to their entire architecture as Defender. And in 2021, they raised it from $1 billion to $4 billion a year, and it's solely for development. It doesn't include acquisitions. I can very humbly tell you this because in doing the work I'm telling you about, I paid a terrible price. I'm 100% healthy now. I really am. But I had to hit this so hard that I couldn't break away. I couldn't lose my focus. I couldn't break from the concentration of what I was doing. And when I finally got to the point where I made this work, I actually collapsed and had to be hospitalized for 30 days, and I underwent 4 operations. And it was all about staying focused and not letting go where my mind was in understanding what's really happening. And I'm healthy now. What happened, how I got sick was I'm a former Marine paratrooper. So imagine a Marine paratrooper that survived combat in the Middle East combined with being, a technologist engineer. It's kind of a deadly combination. But I wouldn't let go, where I was at, what I was thinking, because if I really, truly relaxed, I would have to reload all of these logic loops and algorithms in my head. But I didn't realize I had contracted walking pneumonia. I never really had that before in my life. I was a runner. And so I literally didn't know that my right lung had filled with fluids. And on the 2nd of January, 2022, I came down that Sunday morning and I leaned forward because I was running a test pattern all night to see if what I had done so far was stable, and I had made it. But when I leaned forward, I went into a sneezing episode, and I exploded and collapsed my right lung. And so I had to be rushed to the hospital. I underwent 4 operations. I really believe God's watching out over me. I really believe I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing, because when I went in that March for another CAT scan, the thoracic surgeon came in with this long look on her face, and I thought she was going to tell me I was dead. And she said, I can't quite explain this, but you're 100% healed. So, I'm a God-fearing man.
Bob, great. Yeah, that's God's with us all, it seems, and seems God's with us all, and almost as if the Holy Spirit has brought us all together. And that's I'm to tell you the truth, I'm not surprised that Microsoft has an architectural portal by design. What do you say, Jaeson?
Yeah, he wants to add something here. Let's go ahead.
This is absolute genius. The ability for these people to do this, and it was an act of God that I humbly tell everyone that I now have a patent pending solution. I can take it away and control it. Now, it's not something that's this is not something that you install it. It sets the parameters, and you're okay. That's static. This is a continuous battle. Microsoft is doing so many things under the hood, but the truth of the matter is, and I humbly tell everybody this, yes, what I've discovered is genius. Yes, they're all genius, but it's also evil. This is some of the most evil technology I've ever seen in my life, and I truly believe with all my heart that with all this fighting going on between the Democrats and the Republicans, if the Democrats, like I said, if Nancy Pelosi knew about this, if Chuck Schumer, if they really knew the dynamics, if somebody told them the truth, I would believe that they would freak out faster than the Republicans.
Well, the one thing about it is it sounds like the bad guys are in as big a danger as the good guys, because they can, what I've been seeing out there is watching the bad guys actually eat each other alive trying to survive. And so, I think everyone is in danger right now, because they could frame anyone. They could mess with the power grid. They could mess with pretty much the whole system, communication wise as well as power wise. What do you think about this?
Elections. And that takes Bob. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all your diligence. We only have 20 more minutes, Bob. So, Bob, let's
go ahead.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah.
Well, we got 21 minutes here left to go. So before the next guest, so And then what we can do is, if you want to come on next week, we can talk about it next week again, because I think this is so important. Cybersecurity
this is so critical, and I would like, if you don't mind me saying so, maybe this is set this up for people. I can humbly tell you that I was brought in. This is how I met Jeff well over a year ago. I was brought in to do an analysis, and I'd like for the audience to understand what I'm about to say. I grew up, my father was 17 years old in World War II, Battle of Okinawa, survived. I'm a U.S. Marine. I believe in the Constitution. I agreed to defend this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. When I do this research, I'm not doing it for my political orientation. I'm not doing anything whatsoever to allow the Republicans to win or the Democrats to win. That doesn't matter. What matters are the mechanics, and what matters is the truth. What I'm about to say is this. I have a timeline, which Jeff hasn't seen, from about 18 months up to the 2020 election, with just an incredible number of events. And then I have a timeline after the 2020 election up until about March, April, May of 2023. The machine that the Democrats are organized in what they're doing is absolutely incredible. But I will say this to you about the 2020 election. They used Windows 7. Windows 7 was supposed to be completely removed and out of date at the end of January of 2020. Microsoft allowed all the voting machine corporations to use that through the 2020 election. I can tell you this. If you were to bring Dominion voting machine executives into court and they were to raise their right hand and you asked them, did they make modifications to their software to throw the election? And they would say, no, we didn't. I don't know what your audience is going to say. I don't know what, but they would be telling the truth. Now, let me tell you something else, which is even worse. And by the time I get there, if you brought in the Republicans and they said, hey, some things really went wrong here, really went wrong, and things are not right, and they raised their right hand and they swore on that, they're telling the truth. What has happened in all of this analysis is that every PhD, every person they brought in, they were specifically looking at the voting machine software. They never considered anything going on inside the operating systems. They never looked at what happened before the 2020 election, through the 2020 election. This is some pretty sophisticated things. And the bottom line to it is that a lot of people looking at it either intentionally put on blinders or they couldn't see the forest for the trees. And so that's...
Yeah, Bob.
Bob, scary. Okay, so Jeff and Jason, let's hear your opinions on this.
So, go ahead, Jason, you first.
No, I as he hit on these vulnerabilities. There's a reason why Windows XP discontinued was 2009. That's very correct that Windows 7 was discontinued in January of 2020, before the election, just before the virus caused everyone to say, "Oh no, we need to do all these protocols to, we can't get into work on things, and we have to extend the life on all these different programs and softwares and things that we knew were vulnerable." I would just say I would like to add a few different things. Is in the software that Microsoft has, and what he's referring to, there's no love lost on the fact that our government works with our vendors in special programs. So it's not like a surprise.
They're rigging it through businesses as well as the government and their public-private partnerships and all this other nonsense that they're doing to
And-
keep themselves in power.
If you look at what McAfee was doing,
They're brokering it.
It's really not much different than what he was doing there.
So basically, they're brokering this through CISA and CISA's contractors, and you can read it in an Executive Order 14019 that was issued by Biden, and now CISA is mandated to do certain things that are not in the best interest of the people. But when we're on Donna, if you can go back to that, I wanted to get to that this morning. This is groundbreaking news, and this is something that everyone in Florida who registers for a vote by mail ballot, everyone who requests a vote by mail ballot, they get a confirmation email, as you can see on the screen. I as a test requested a vote by mail ballot. I voted in person, but I did request one. And if you look at the top level domain, the email domain here that we have, you see it's vrsystems.com. Everyone
Can you increase
agree?
the size
And
just a little bit, Jeff?
Possibly.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's helpful.
All right. So here we have proof positive that there's a third-party vendor. They have a contract with Florida, and there's in no uncertain terms they have access to the voter database. So let's now go on to page 2, and here's their website. Elections are all we do. VR systems. Successful. What does that really mean, successful? Right? I'd rather see like fair and transparent, not successful. I mean, to me, they're looking for a certain outcome, but that's just dissecting words. Let's go on to here's their full top level domain, okay, vrsystems.com. And we saw it on the email. So now I'm going to go to the next page. And what I did was, first I did a who is search, and we see some similarities to Russia and China and many other countries that are not friendly to the United States. Friendly or not, there should be no foreign interference or the potential thereof of foreign interference. Now, this is a deeper dive. I got an extra T up here, but the domain is robtex, no T, .com/DNS -lookup /vrsystems.com. And let's see what this reveals. Now, this is something that's used by all security folks to do the initial investigation on the domain. And here again, we see Russia. So this is proof positive that there is interconnectivity in some way between this system of mail-in ballot processing to Russia, to Turkmenistan, to China, to Denmark, to UK, all over the world. And we're going to go down to the next page, and we're going to take a look at. I ran some AI on these guys, and basically what I found was the Russian entity. I could get to their website. I couldn't get to China, obviously. But what we're looking at is this company specializes in. They were born out of creating virtual reality, and they're very good at it. So what are they doing? Our elections, in my opinion, it's virtual reality, and they're successful to the outcome that the bad actors would like to see, and that's the globalist agenda, the communist agenda. And let's take a little deep dive further. So this is just some more information I got on AI regarding what these the history of these folks, VR systems. But let's take a look at their Russian website. And what I did was I translated the website, the front page, and I'm just going to make this a little smaller so I can show more of the page. And let's see what the literal translation is of this. Okay, so everything about security and technologies. And basically they do cybersecurity, and there's mentions of preventing cyber warfare. So I mean, in order to know how to prevent cyber warfare, you must know how to execute cyber warfare. I think that's a fair assessment. So let's take a look at their wiki page in Russian. And I just took the first paragraph and translated, and it's kind of hard to the translations aren't exactly 100%, but to me this is saying that their mission is to control labor, and they talk about labor in the translations, and what they want is so including labor activity, and then it's it's kind of obscure as to what they're saying, but they want a wider discipline of syndics. And like, what's a syndic? And basically it's almost to my research, because syndication and syndicates, it's a crime syndicate, and they want to control labor across the world and embed themselves in as many governments across the world as possible. So that's getting back to them. That was their homepage. And finally, why would a company specializing in virtual reality, cyber security, with a tinge of DEI and ESG and social justice, why would they have access? Why would they control 27 electoral votes in the United States? If this is foreign interference, this is definitely grounds for a grand jury to investigate, and that's what we're doing tomorrow. We're going to the Palm Beach County Commissioners meeting, and we're lobbying for a grand jury in the county. We already have one in the state, and this also, you could thread the needle to the massive amount of illegals and the have transactions that we spoke about in length on this show. So, this to me is something the average person in Florida can understand. Anyone who's requested a vote by mail ballot can simply go into their inbox and search VR systems, and they'll find this confirmation email. We have a constitutional crisis in Florida. Article 6, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution says you must be a U.S. citizen to vote. Florida Statute 97.041 not only says you have to be a U.S. citizen, it also says you have to prove residency, which we don't do. Therefore, we have lost control of the Florida voter registration database. We cannot trust it. It's corrupt. It must be totally wiped, deleted, and every U.S. citizen of Florida, residing in Florida, must re-register to vote, and they must prove citizenship. If they don't, the election is not certifiable, and those certifying the election will be held accountable. We have to nip this in the bud and get in front of it.
Well, it sounds to me like we've gotten past the bud stage to this, and this thing is full bloom corruption here. And would it be safe to say, with you gentlemen on here, that our elections right now are really nothing more than a simulation? I'm kind of moving in that direction, wondering if just the ballots, the paper ballots and such, are there just as like visual effect to mislead the people, because they're doing it all behind the scenes.
It's VR. It's virtual reality. It's about as legitimate as the New York City show. It's a show trial. It's about as legitimate as Judge Mershon and the 45 counts that the rightful President Donald J. Trump was convicted on.
You got it in there, didn't you? You got to say it at least once a show. We have to say it. The rightful President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in the history of the United States, bar none. Not going back on this one. Absolutely. So
Donna,
Donna,
we made it 51 minutes without saying it. This could be a
it was
51
amazing,
minutes
right?
to say it.
But we got it in there.
I was getting worried we were going to time out and not say it.
No, I can't let that happen.
Jason, what's comments, Jason? I have a question for you. How do you know how many states VR is in? Because I'm laser focused on Florida right now. I see all the work you're doing in Michigan and Pete in Wisconsin and John Cagle in Arizona and everyone else who's working. But how many states do you know? Does Michigan use VR? Does Wisconsin use VR? I know
they all
South Carolina
have to use
does.
it.
No, not all the states. But you have to understand that there's a whole collection of companies out there that do various different aspects of this very same tool set, and it's just one of several. I mean, you look at, for example, the ballot printers, right? Runback doesn't do the ballot printing for the entire country, right? So there's a lot of these vendors are
Thank
either
God.
localized or work in specific states, or they partner with specific voting machine vendors. So you'll see a lot of overlap in some of their areas. There's some things that I'd like to say, but I have to bite my tongue for now. There's there'll be
Spill
more.
it, Jason, spill it.
There's more stuff that'll come out in the next couple of weeks. There was a letter that's from DAR that was just.
Go ahead, say it. I
delivered.
can't comment on that because it's in the middle of an investigation.
Yeah, there you go.
There's an ongoing investigation.
What Jeff's saying in terms of the
Yeah, it's an
election,
ongoing investigation.
pertinent to this conversation.
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Well,
5
very
minutes. 5 minutes.
that based on my background with the White House, I've never been an employee of any intelligence agency. I've partnered with corporations who were under direct contract with the CIA. So I became so upset at government and everything I saw at the end of 2008 when the WMD Commission was completed and the W. Bush administration left. I allowed my security clearance to automatically default to an inactive status. Now, you have to do that in order, because I anticipated a Snowden type breach long before 2013, because I saw how just the total mismanagement of top secret or classified documents laying on people's desks. Now, how it relates to what Jeff was talking about with the election.
In garages by Corvettes.
For the government, there was a time I was highly respected. There's actually a time when I spoke, people actually listened. There's been a whole new culture come into government. Now, I did know former previous technical directors of U.S. Cyber Command. They're linked at the hip to the NSA. I know people in the Pentagon over cyber with above top secret clearances. I can tell you this, and I am correct in what I'm saying. There was a time when our government was much better organized. There was a time, as the gentleman spoke up, talked about, working with Microsoft.
Bob, 30 seconds. Can you wrap it up? Bob, can you wrap it up in 30 seconds?
Okay.
Can you ask? Because I have a question for Jaeson. Very, very important. No, this is pertaining to tomorrow.
Okay, that's okay.
We're going to have to cut for a break. Bob, 30 seconds.
Okay, please let me finish.
Go ahead. You have got time.
Is that with everything, there's a lot that's changed. The government's disjunct. It's become pocketed, even in agencies. I brought this to people that should have known this was happening, and I could see their body language, and they didn't know what was happening inside of Microsoft. And this is what I was told, which is unbelievable.
Bob, we're going to have Bob back next Monday. Can we do that?
We're operating
Jaeson, Bob, we're going to have you back on Monday. I have a meeting tomorrow, and I want to get Jaeson. So, Jaeson,
they have to go by a checklist with yes, no. So they didn't look for this. So our government is really pocketed and disjunct, and the organizations you think this would be common knowledge, even in a classified environment, it's not. So we're in a lot of trouble.
Well, you know what?
And that has to do with our elections and what Jeff was talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So Jeff, let's ask your question to Jaeson, and then you know what? We're going to come back on the same panel next Monday, and hopefully you can get your camera working there, Bob, so that everybody can see you and such. That would be great. So Jeff, what was your question?
So yes, can I just get before before we break, tomorrow is very important. I will be presenting this evidence on VR systems, and Colonel McGregor is sending his media team to cover this, and Vandersteel will be there. There's a press release going out, and we expect some conservative media there. So I just want to get quickly both your guys' opinion, starting with Jaeson, on the on this Robtex and the validity of this evidence on a confidence level on a scale of 1 to 10.
On what he said, on what Bob said today, or on
no my
topic?
presentation. I'm not presenting Bob. I'm presenting
On VR systems.
VR systems, and yes.
Hey, do you mind me reading something real briefly?
Go ahead, Jaeson.
Voter to ballot assignment. One thing that really hinders us out in the field is linking voters to voter files, in voter files to a ballot to print during batch printing. In a previous discussion, we had discussed moving away from activation codes and PDF names, as VR systems have no clue of what these are, and moving to an ICR style of linking via precinct style party. In my opinion, these 3 fields are the golden ticket to linking any voter to a ballot. What just happened in Texas was that they were able to, through FOIA request, identify an individual's ballot. So simply through FOIA, you can find out exactly how someone voted. You can pull up their exact ballot.
So much for security.
So much for the secrecy of the ballot.
Right.
And VR systems works with Dominion.
I don't have a problem
We got to
with that.
eliminate.
You used to, in the old days, you used to go to the school gymnasium. You'd have to go to the school gymnasium, and half of the, you go to the town hall. Who's voting for who wants this? They go to one side of the room, and the other folks go to the other side of the room. The secret ballot is obfuscation. But if you were me walking into this county meeting tomorrow, how confident would you feel that the potential for foreign actors to interfere with VR is greater than 50%? Give me a percentage, just so I need it for my confidence level in presenting. Asking a friend.
Without a doubt, there's a significant threat potential for a threat actor.
Okay, guys, you know what? We're going to call it good here for today.
Yeah.
And thanks, Jeff, Jaeson, and Bob. Thanks
for coming
on. And we're going to see you guys next week, Monday. And I'm going to move off to here to introduce our next guest, Jaeson Jones, 911, Border 911. And very, very happy to have you guys on. And we will see you here next week. Have a great week, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you. Bye-bye. I'll be right back with Jaeson Jones. Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. It's the second hour, and I want to introduce my next guest, Jaeson Jones, who is with Border 911. Good morning, Jaeson. How are you?
I'm great. Good morning to you. It's good to be with you.
It's very great to have you on today. Thank you so much for coming on. I tell you, I listened to you speak at one of the presentations that General Flynn had in Michigan, and I thought you were, without a doubt, one of the most knowledgeable people that I'd ever listened to talking about what's going on in the border down there. Can you tell people a little bit about yourself and the organization that you have and what's actually going down there on the border. There's so much misinformation that's getting through to people. And what I've really became aware of is how many illegitimate organizations are down there on the border. I did a little bit of investigation on people that just suit up, but they're not actually doing the work. And I know you're doing the work, and I really appreciate your time, your expertise, and being able to tell everybody what's really going on.
Oh, well, Donna, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. And it was nice meeting you there as well. And I'll tell you, my whole thing here is that I'm a retired captain from the Texas Department of Public Safety's Intelligence and Counterterrorism Division. I ran the Texas Rangers Cross-Border Operations Center. Was not a ranger, but because of my workings with the U.S. intelligence agencies, I was asked to run one of their programs. And I was so frustrated after moving 9 times across the state of Texas, working closely with U.S. intelligence agencies to save lives in Mexico. You got to remember, back then, we were combating the Los Zetas, who were conducting mass murders of illegal aliens who were just trying to get through Mexico and Mexican citizens. And it was very clear to me without any question that what was happening there was going to come here. So I went public to get the Mexican cartels designated in 2016 as foreign terrorist organizations. I'm the guy that started that entire initiative, and I'm at it 7 days a week, haven't slowed down since. And somehow along the way became Newsmax's national border correspondent, and today a part of a group known as Border 911. And our whole goal is to really educate the American people on what's taking place at the border and in Mexico that's directly impacting Americans across this country, and really get the truth out there to what the media is not telling the American people.
Now, do you have some video clips that that we could share on here to show what's actually going on down there? I know I saw them at the presentation. Would you like to share some of those, or
I've got so many. Yeah, you can go to jasonjones.com for those of you watching, or go to any of my social media sites. You can see them. I post daily. I just got off the border in Arizona for 8 days straight. So what I do is I go to the border and I embed with law enforcement. That's kind of what's a little different about what I do. But at the end of the day, everything is trying to illuminate what we're dealing with so that we can eliminate it. I mean, I want to be very clear here so everyone understands. We are witnessing right now the largest U.S. intelligence failure since 9/11, totally separate from the immigration issue. Take that totally out of it for just a second. You have to recognize there have been massive shifts in Mexico where there has been synergy with the Mexican cartels, the Halcon network, the alien smuggling organizations globally, and a synergy with Middle East terrorist organizations and state and non-state actors, unlike we have ever seen. So when I say the greatest U.S. intelligence failure since 9/11. Many people immediately say, what are you talking about? This is all being conducted by design, what's taking place at the borders. But they are not being told by the intelligence agencies the global impacts and the global things taking place. And so that's what I'm really trying to focus on to do, because I can tell you this. I know these cartels very, very well. If you think the 100,000 dead Americans year after year for the last 3 years straight, more, by the way, that have died in the Vietnam War, and more people killed by these cartels in any terrorist organization globally. If you think this is where it ends, I want to be very clear. This is just the beginning if we don't go after them.
What do you think? You had talked about Santa Muerte when we were at that conference there. And I really don't think people understand exactly the monster we're dealing with here, and how far this has gone into the United States of America, how far these cartels, it's not Mexico anymore. It's in our backyard. It's pretty much everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. The failure here is tremendous. The DEA, a little over a week ago, in their 2024 threat assessment, finally admitted to the American people that the cartels are operating in all 50 states. Well, for those of us, just so everyone knows, for those of us who have been working them, that's been going on for over a decade. That's nothing new. Now you got to overlay that with what they're doing now. It's not just about the drugs. It's a new tidal wave, what I call America's new slave trade of the trafficking, not the smuggling of people, but the trafficking of them through what we call debt bondage throughout every part of this country. Now that's their new initiative. But you got to remember, when you talk about the cartels, it's not a U.S.-Mexico problem, and it hasn't been down for a long time. Sinaloa cartels in 54 countries around the world. Cartel Jalisco New Generation is in over 48. So The problem here is that we have had a failure to communicate to the American people by what we call the Homeland Security enterprise, local, state, federal, DOD, and the U.S. intelligence agencies at a level we haven't seen in my lifetime. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I know what's coming and I know how much worse than what we're feeling is going to be, what we're going through right now and what's coming and what it's going to be.
What can you explain to everybody what the debt bond looks like and what we're really dealing with in the trafficking situation, please?
Yeah, when you think of human trafficking, most Americans think of it through commercial sex. Yes, that is absolutely right. That's one form of it. But you also have two others. You have forced labor, and then you have what we call debt bondage. And what began to take place, look, in the old days, the cartels didn't give two shits about people. They didn't care. They call them bodies. I mean, they don't care about them. To cross that southern border is $100 to cross the river for the Gulf Cartel, to give you an example. And just as U.S. Border Patrol was absolutely overwhelmed at our southern border in February of 2021, so were the cartels. And so what they began to see is that just this massive wave of backup of people. The Gulf Cartel was so emboldened, they began putting these wristbands. A lot of your viewers right now are probably seeing these. I broke this story in February of 2021. Each different wristband represents a different alien smuggling organization. And they put those on men, women, and children. And it's a process, just as they were overwhelmed and Border Patrol was, they created a process to make sure that nobody crossed through their area of control without paying what we call the piso or the tax, just to cross through their area, their river. So, you know, when I told you the old days, it was $100 to cross that river, all of a sudden overnight, it was $2,500 if you were a Mexican citizen. It was $3,000 if you were Central American. It was $5,000 if you were Chinese, and it was $9,000 when this first started in February of 21. Now it's changed tremendously. And then $9,000 if you were Russian or Middle Eastern. So these people didn't have the money, just like most Americans don't have that kind of money. So what were they doing? They put these wristbands on them. They put all their, what we call PII data into a database. By the way, each one of these have a little number on them, and that number is assigned to that individual. Once they got all of their family information, the country of origin where they came from and where they were going, and they validated it via phone call, they put a wristband on them. And then when they crossed into the United States by the cartel on rafts, as soon as they hit the ground on the U.S. side, they broke the wristband. And then what did U.S. Border Patrol do, and Health and Human Services and all the other organizations? They moved that virus throughout our country. But the cartels did not have the human trafficking networks set up at that point. So what they did is started putting their operatives in with these big groups that Americans have seen on every news station across the country. And we spread that virus all over the country. And so now this is why we're now seeing a wave of debt bondage, the likes of which we've never seen before.
What is an example of some of these organizations that are involved in this? Because I've heard, quite honestly, quite a bit about, say, Catholic services, Lutheran services, some of the NGOs that we have that are parading as do-gooder organizations. Well, from what I see, they sure look like human traffickers to me, because they're getting paid and enabling this. In fact, we had something up in Michigan here where they were trying to put a facility in Alma, and I went and dug through the tax returns of one of the organizations in Michigan, and I couldn't even believe what I found. They parade themselves as an adoption agency as well as doing family services, but over half of the money they took in was for refugee resettlement, and it was a shocking amount of money, and the amount that they paid for salaries was shocking. And I came right out and I said, people, this is human trafficking. This is absolutely, when you get into those dollars. Nonprofit is a very much a deceptive title. And so when people look at these organizations that are parading as do-gooders, you got to start asking some questions, because evil is parading in all sorts of forms right now.
I couldn't agree more with you there. I think when through the natural course of time, what's going to happen is Americans are going to realize that we have been dealing with something that none of us really were aware of, including myself, to be quite frank, and many others within the law enforcement and or the border security realm. And that is this illegal, industrialized immigration complex. It's real. It is global. It is operating around the world. And if you really take a look at what happened in Europe first, it hit there first, and then it came to the United States under the Biden administration. And so the NGOs that you see, like I just came from Arizona, there's one out there called No More Deaths. They're getting millions of dollars in funding. They're everywhere, by the way. You go into the Tucson airport and literally there are lines of illegal aliens who have crossed, and they have these little blue bags in vanilla envelopes, and our country's flying them. Our nation is flying these people all over the country. I mean, it's just, it is the most frustrating thing to see what's taking place here. None of this is legal. I don't know how we're getting away with it. The U.S. attorney's offices have completely failed the American citizen. You're down there, you see USC 1325, which is the violation to cross the border illegally between the ports. No one is enforcing that rule of law. I mean, our federal system is completely broken down right now, and that's why you see the chaos at the border that you've seen consistently all across the border region. It's also why you're seeing violence domestically. What I would tell everyone, though, is that this is all going to come out. The Catholic organizations down in South Texas that are heavily involved, getting millions of dollars to move these people throughout the country. This is all going to come out, but the problem is the level of damage. And, you know, this is the story that's not told. And right now, I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Anyone can look at the data. Go to the CBP website, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, type in national encounters and look at the numbers. I've got them right here for you. So I want to tell you where we really are as a nation. And,
do you have it on a computer screen or is it in a paper that you got printed?
Yeah, just go. I just wrote it down here for this morning. So October, but if you go to the CBP National Encounters website and just type in National Encounters, click on it, all the data pops up right there. You can see, I've got it right here behind me. For 7 months of this year, 7 months, we're at 1.9 million encounters at your nation's borders and ports of entries. We've never seen those kind of numbers in a 7-month period, ever. From October of 21 to April of 24, there you go, right there, go down a little bit. There you go. There you go, there it is right there. Keep going down a little bit more. Now to everyone watching, this is how you can keep the honesty in the federal government. CBP does a fantastic job of putting in what the numbers are, and you can see right there for 7 months of fiscal year 2024. Now look at what it was in 23, 3.2 million encounters. Now I've got the total numbers here added up, and you can all do it as well. 9.9 million encounters since October of 21 to April of 24, just around a little over 3.5 years, not including the known gotaways of 2 million. So when you average all that up, you're at 11.9 million encounters in 3.5 years. Don't let anyone lie to you. As a nation, we have never been here. Now let me show you another stat here called unaccompanied alien children. Right there, Donna, if you'll click on that, it says demographics on the bottom left right there. I'm sorry, on the top bar, but on the bottom left, you'll see a little icon there you can click on.
Top bar.
Yep, keep going right there. There you go. See, it says demographics. Click on that little down arrow above it, just above where you are to the right. There you go, right there. Now click. Get rid of all those except UACs at the very bottom. There you go. Go down. Now click that. All unaccompanied. There you go. Click that. Now watch, it's going to change. Ladies and gentlemen, these are your unaccompanied alien children who have crossed your borders without any family present. From the same time frame that you're seeing from October of 21 to April of 24, 513,204 unaccompanied children. So when I tell you we are in a place as a nation we have never been, there's not a government agency in this country that can keep up with these kind of stats. This is why the Department of Homeland Security has had to admit that they've lost, as of 2022, by the way, they're behind, over 85,000 children. They have no idea where they are, where they placed them in this country. So when I tell you that it is not about national security any longer, that gig is up. And then all these pundits that keep coming out worried about national security, they're just rinse, washing, and repeating what they have always heard and what they're saying. We are in a whole new realm. And that is that as the Biden administration opened up our borders to over 171 countries, according to CBP, we are now in a new place, and that is all about public safety, because the enemy and the threat now walks among us. And I mean it to the very core of who I am. The data validates it. You can also look at the terrorism data in there from people on the FBI's terrorism watch list. We've never seen numbers like that ever. I mean, in the last 9 months alone, we're at 81, 88-year southern border, 1 8-year northern border on the FBI's terrorism watch list. So look, I'm just going to tell you, last night we had 2 police officers with NYPD shot, Venezuelan illegal immigrant, illegal alien, excuse my language. Get ready. The Lincoln Riley cases like this, I'm tired of hearing from the FBI director and all of these so-called leaders in this country who keep talking to us about we're worried about the next hit. We're worried about the next terrorist attack. Well, let me tell you, it is a terrorist attack when somebody or a crew kicks in your front door, rapes the people you love the most in the world, or kills them. That's a terrorist attack on you and your family, and that matters. And I've been the guy that goes to your door, knocks on it, and tells you that the people you love the most in the world are never coming home. Never. And you watch these Americans fall in front of you. You ought to try doing it when it's illegal aliens, and they should have never been in the country in the first place. It brings a whole new level of pain to American citizens. And what this administration has done has, without question, brought more pain than Americans are ready for. And so I'm being very frank and very open that the national security model is over. That is a protective model that is all designed about one thing, to prevent it. Well, we opened it. We opened the floodgates. And to everyone watching, you need to know that the threat now is here and it walks among us. And every reasonable and prudent American, I think, understands that now. But to what degree, we're about to learn in the next probably 24 months.
Yeah, or less. I think it's going to be it feels like it's upon us, like right now. And when you see the level of things that are just ramping up, it's day by day. You see more stories and more things going on that are just horrific to a normal person, a person that just wants to live a good life and be hang out with their families, take care of people in their communities and that sort of thing. It's horrific. We can't even relate to how these people think that are coming here to do harm. And unfortunately, the naive nature of human beings sometimes is one of their worst downfalls, because they don't identify the threats and remove them quickly. Is there any quick way out of this that you know?
No. We have been dealt the blow of a soft invasion, a new type of warfare Americans are not used to. We've never dealt with anything like this, and the secondary and third impacts will be felt tremendously. If you look at what has happened at Quantico now, they're saying that we've now dealt the first terrorist attack on our country. What took place in Quantico, 2 Jordanians, one of them was on the FBI terrorism watch list, but yet the FBI refuses, and so does the White House, to tell us anything about what the findings are in that. I've never seen that in my career. Never.
So
I've never seen a lack of transparency like this ever. I mean, it's incredible. And by the way, with the one Jordanian was directly linked to crossing the border illegally. And look, the list goes on. I just talked to you about the 2 officers shot last night in New York. I just talked to you about Lincoln Riley. I mean, you could do these one-offs all day, every day that are taking place. And the worst part is our own uniform crime reporting system and national incident-based reporting system that collects transnational crime doesn't capture this data. So right now, 2 police officers being shot. Yeah, that was captured as 2 police officers shot. It wasn't captured as somebody that crossed the border illegally, directly linked to Venezuela. People being killed by the cartels, same thing, not linked to transnational crime from other countries. So, the perpetual lie that those who cross illegally commit fewer crimes than Americans. Well, somebody tell me where that stat comes from.
It comes from the libs.
That's exactly my point.
It's the Marxists that are trying to spread this disinformation narrative and have people go to the Disney World mentality that everything's okay, and when it's just burning right down all the way around us. And that's my opinion on it.
Well, the data doesn't collect it. So, I mean, I can tell you that the FBI's National Incident-Based Reporting System only captures 52 new index crimes, which is really a total of, I think, 61 total now. So there are so many types of crimes that are taking place directly linked to transnational crime that we have no idea about. I can go on and on: kidnapping, extortion, murders, money laundering, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, human trafficking. I mean, everything I've been talking about here is not collected. You can't make this stuff up. And as a nation, if we don't get the little things right, Donna, we are never going to get the big things right. And that is exactly why we are in the position we are in.
Well, yeah. And unfortunately, the rigged elections that we've had has been one of the results of this, is having criminals in office. They have, all of them, committed treason and I think there's been a lot of them that have been threatened and coerced, because when you're dealing with organized crime, you're going to have threats that have a a weird way of changing people's positions on things. And it's really a shame. But regardless, there's so many people that are just going along to get along instead of fighting this. And it sure feels like a planned operation from within, from bottom to top. You can start with the clerks. I've listened to clerks say, well, I did everything right. I'm like, well, that doesn't mean the elections are correct. So, and if people bring a question forward, wouldn't you think that they would investigate it? So when it comes to the board, why is it that they're all just turning a blind eye to this?
Let me tell you, I've been in law enforcement.
They're all involved. Somebody's getting a payoff somewhere.
I will tell you that, the violation of USC 1325 and the lack of enforcement by the U.S. Attorney's offices overlaid that with the out of focus of the federal law enforcement agencies is tremendous. We've never seen anything like this in our country's history. Americans have to understand that. And then you overlay that with DAs who refuse to enforce the rule of law. The law doesn't say you can enforce it when you feel like it on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. The law says you shall. That's the way it reads. It says you shall. So, look, the damage to the nation is here. We are all feeling it. We're living and breathing it, and we're going to have to get real tough, real quick, real fast to hold these people accountable who have done this great harm to so many families. I was just in Arizona. I was with some incredible law enforcement leaders, Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County, Sheriff Daniels of Cochise County. These are incredible men who have been speaking out. They've been under threat themselves. Arizona right now is ground zero for Sinaloa fentanyl pouring into the United States, impacting so many Americans. So I leave tomorrow to go to Philly to illuminate what's happening in Kensington. So I kind of did a border tour so that I can then go to ground zero to show the impacts to the American public. This will get worse before it gets better, and Americans need to know that. They need to prepare themselves for it. And, look, I'm just a very open and honest guy, man. I mean, this ain't rocket science. It's not difficult to see the failure. You're looking at the data, and data speaks volumes. We have never done this. And then overlay that with a entirely new immigration system, the CBP 1 app. CBP 1 app, if you're not familiar with that allows hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. It's a parallel immigration system that allows them to fill out information on an app and then go through apparently some kind of vetting process based on whatever information they provide. And then they get to fly into major international airports all over the country. So far, we know over 500,000 have been able to leverage that. Think of that. I mean, we're in crazy world right now, what's happening. So, I'm on your border. I see the vetting process with the Chinese. 4 questions determines whether you're a part of the CCP or not. I mean, so, all this is going to come out in the natural course of time, Donna, but I will tell you this without any hesitation. We're going to see it play out, and we'll see how this plays for the American public. And for me, everything now is about public safety and trying to illuminate the threats to the people.
Well, and it's really sad because you see so many, like you were talking, the kids, the children that are being used as pawns going through this too. These people are ruthless, and the crimes that they're capable of bringing into our peaceful towns and such is just, I think it's just the beginning. We think about crimes being in the cities, but the reality is it's in our backyards. We just haven't seen them activated yet. Do you think that there's a potential of a coordinated attack by some of these actors that are in the United States? And, God forbid, nobody wants to say, okay, if they're from Venezuela or name a nationality or something, but it seems to be so coordinated. I would think that would be a smart way to approach this and say, these people are from, say, this area, this is the organization they're involved in, and not be naive about it, because we don't want to call them out as, for fear of being called out ourselves of being racist. Well, facts are facts. If there's an organization, as you said, from Venezuela that's here, an organized crime, or China, or Afghanistan, or wherever they're coming from, Somalia, for gosh sakes, we've seen Ilhan Omar shoot her mouth off enough about serving Somalia before the United States of America. We need to call this out, because that's an invasion, just like the Palestinians under a Palestinian flag. This is an act of war serving another country under a foreign flag?
Well, let me give you a great example as to why the incident last night significant. What happened in New York and the shooting and the individual being Venezuelan. Well, right now, what we have happening on the southern area is Tren de Agua. Are you familiar with that gang?
I'm not.
Venezuela? Okay. So again,
what I know, most of it came through you at that conference, because I've seen some of it, and I've tried to stay aware of things.
mm-hmm.
But I really do think that if we could go into and explore a little bit some of the cartels and what this really looks like, because the average person isn't seeing what you're seeing, and the news won't bring it out there, and it's a little hard to find.
Sure. So one of the reasons immediately, like last night with the Tren de Agua, first thing you know, we began seeing Tren de Agua, which is a Venezuelan gang, hyper violent, like MS-13, crossing in huge numbers in El Paso, Texas in December of 22, massive. And like a virus that spread across the state of Texas. They're now operating in every major city, combating other rival street gangs and what we call tier 1 gangs. And now they're moving like a virus throughout the country. So that's one of the problems. Then you have to overlay Venezuela as well, based on what's happening in that country and some of the disruption operations where they've been training people to come into the United States. Now, far beyond that, let's just look at the totality. We are all still thinking the way we did after 9/11 because of what happened to our country. We're constantly in fear of the Middle East terrorist attack, right? You need to understand that the world has shifted. There are new threats. Middle East terrorist organizations and the Mexican cartels, from the cartels' perspective, they don't mean shit. We hold the Middle East terrorist groups here because of what has happened to us, while we put the cartels down here as these drug traffickers. If you and I were briefing them right now, they would be like this in Mexico, because in Mexico, the cartels dominate. They work with former special forces like GAFE to be trained in basic, intermediate, and advanced training. They work with the K-Bills. K-Bills are Guatemalan special forces to go through basic, intermediate, and advanced training. They work with the FARC, which was a former designated foreign terrorist organization from Colombia. So tradecraft-wise, the cartels do not think they can get something out of the Middle East terrorist groups. They mean nothing to them. Matter of fact, when you sit down and you debrief these people and you say, hey, have you seen any terrorists or anyone that, you guys, that the organizations, or as they call it, the company, would want to move into the country lately? They're like, yeah, I got 6 over here. I got 6 terrorists in this house. I got 3 terrorists in this house over here. I got 4 in this one. Because from their standpoint, they don't care. If you come from the Middle East, I'm just going to charge you more money. And if I think you really are a terrorist, and you're going to try to, commit crimes in the United States or some major act of violence, I'm just going to charge you more money, because they don't care if a city disappears tomorrow in the U.S. See, this is what should be told to the American people, yet no one is saying anything about it. There is nothing being talked about in this. So what you have to understand is, when I talk to you about state and non-state actors, the synergy with long-haul smugglers, the capabilities of the cartels working globally with all of these special forces groups, fighting every single day their rivals in Mexico, and then creating this synergy of alignment between all of them, all the way down to from cartels to the alien smuggling organizations to the Halcon network that controls your border to the tier 1 gangs in the United States and US-based street gangs. There is a synergy of the underworld that has been aligned like we have never seen. And as we opened our borders to the world, they came all together at an unprecedented level. And that's why the threat today to really win this is to take on transnational crime. The transnational crime adjustment involves everything from state, non-state, through and through. And we have to have new alignments for that. And I'll give you a great example when we talk about solutions. In the 1980s, as we were being overrun with the crack epidemic, what did we do? We created the Office of National Drug Control Policy, a completely outdated model today, as we've legalized most of the drugs across the country. We need an Operation Warp Speed, like President Trump basically put together against COVID, but we need to move it towards transnational crime, both globally and domestically, to be able to truly focus every tool of national power to go after them on a global stage, create a unified command, but also domestically to have a funding mechanism that allows us to bring all the federal agencies, state and local law enforcement to attack and actually go after these transnational organizations who are now built, prepared, and trained to do us great, great harm. Look, you have to understand, from the cartel's perspective, they do not fear us, the United States. We've done nothing to them. They don't fear the Mexican government. From their perspective, when you sit down with these sicarios and you sit down with them and you talk to them, they fear their rivals. And that's why you see a clear escalation in the tradecraft that they've created, the weaponization that they've done, and the weaponization of fentanyl. Give you a great example, going from regular fentanyl, parafentanyl, serafentanyl, xylazine, nitazine, and all of these other ones that are coming online. Why? It's not because they care about killing every single American. It has nothing to do with that. It's that from their perspective, if their rival makes a better product that sells more, then they can make more money to buy more equipment, get better training, and overrun their area, because they are at war throughout Mexico. Where in the old days, it was along the frontera when I was fighting it. Now it is throughout Mexico as they all battle for more and more. And they don't battle for control of drug trafficking routes. They battle for control, for power. Now let me validate that, because I'm a big believer on everything I say needs to be validated. Take a few minutes, go on and just Google CNN. They did an incredible article. They did probably the best reporting in Mexico that I've seen. Type in CNN, 132 politicians and staffers killed during the last national election. And what they've done is they've put their proxies in charge of Mexico. So when you hear me talk about how the cartels have evolved from 06 organized crime into an insurgency as they truly fought back against the Mexican government, then in 2010 into terrorism as they began conducting mass murders of migrants and of Mexican citizens in that country. And then from there going to where we see them today is a true parallel government in Mexico. You understand the threats that we face now and how Mexico is fully, really a parallel government throughout with these cartels. They have put their proxies in charge throughout that country. And this has been going on a long time, but the problem is that the American people haven't been told. And this all goes and falls back to why you hear me say this is the largest U.S. intelligence failure since 9/11.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say here. I mean, this is so shocking that it sounds like, as you pointed out, that their own country, their government is staffed with the cartel assets. And you really have to look at the United States and almost say the same thing, because what it feels like is organized crime running our entire nation. There doesn't seem to be any morality, and they're partnering up with all kinds of public-private partnerships, the corporations, right down to the underworld type stuff like the drug trafficking. I mean, there's nobody's really talking about this, and they're not doing anything to address it. I'm not hearing anything anyway. Not for seated in the seat.
I've traveled this country. I travel every week, and before I went public, when I was still a captain at the Texas Department of Public Safety, I would travel the country from the briefing and that's where I met General Flynn. He was a 3-star at DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, and I was briefing him. I went all over the federal buildings, from the agency to DHS leadership, and I've been in front of a lot of these people and had a lot of really in-depth conversations. And what I found is that they weren't lying, and that we weren't lying in the South. In the South, we've been for over 20 years screaming, we've got problems. We've got problems. In the North, they were saying, you guys just don't like immigrants, man. You just don't like people of color, right? Well, what I found is that the data collection system has been so flawed in this country and so broken. They would tell me, Jason, we see it in the classified reporting. We see it in what's happened in Mexico. We see the problem of threats. We don't see it domestically yet. And as long as that shit stays in Mexico, then it's not our problem. Well, they couldn't see it because they weren't lying. The data collection system of the UCR that we used until 2021, now known as NIBRS, is completely flawed. And so they weren't lying, but in the South, we weren't lying either, as we were seeing this wave of transnational crime impacting us and this tectonic shift taking place. So when I tell you that in the past, that has, we think of these intelligence agencies and all of these organizations as just being full of the nation's best of the best. And they have some of these finest degrees. But look, I go back to, if you don't get out of the air-conditioned building and see what the hell is going on the ground and how this country has been impacted, you fail. And we are witnessing, and I will say it again and again, and nobody wants to admit this, the largest U.S. intelligence failure since 9/11. because it is so far beyond the immigration issue. You stop that tomorrow, let's just say you did, you're still dealing with 111,000 overdose deaths, which are really poisonings. Again, CDC not even acknowledging that. I'll give you a great example. I just interviewed, and today I'm breaking the stories all over the country. Sheriff Mark Lamb, an incredible guy out of Pinal Cal. I love that guy. I really do. They call him the America's sheriff, right? He's just a warrior for the nation, and he's brutally honest. But they have a stat in Arizona that's just heartbreaking. They had 33 children die in 21 of fentanyl, and 7 of those are under the age of 1.
You're kidding.
No, not. And think of this for a second. How does a 1-year-old die of fentanyl? They're not out there buying it. Well, I'll tell you how. They're crawling on the ground, and residual fentanyl is on the ground, and it absorbs. And what do babies do? They put their hands in their mouth. And that's how they're dying from it. Or they're picking up pills that are on the ground in the carpet, and they're dying from it. We're seeing things we've never seen before as these cartels have truly weaponized fentanyl. So, look, this won't get better until we take them on and take on the labs in Mexico, because the sheer volume with which they're producing right now, Don, is like something we've never seen.
Yeah, I've heard that they could kill every single American like 10 times over. So, it's a little shocking. Everybody I think has been touched by it. We had somebody that just recently, I've known several people that have died of fentanyl overdoses, and half of the people didn't even know they were taking it. They were putting it in like the bubble wrap for Xanax or something like that, because they'll actually fill those Xanax bubble packages, and that's what they thought they were taking. And the one friend of ours, son, he thought he was taking a Xanax, and he was dead before he even hit the ground. And Dad found him, and it was a horrific situation. This was, it's touching everyone. You've got a video here. I'm going to play just a little bit of this just so that people can become familiar. I'll see if it'll play here a little bit. Seems like the squirrels are chugging around here, but it's not wanting to play right now. So see, that's what you get, real news for real people, by real people at the kitchen table, sort of, so sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to see if it'll get past the squirrels here. But in the meantime, other things that people need to be aware of.
The big one that's going to hit them the hardest, and that is this human trafficking wave of debt bondage. We're not used to that. We were protected for so many years
but it was still going on, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't through debt bondage like we see today. A lot of the professionals in the human trafficking world, I think the world of them, I really do, and I mean that. But, trying to link every single prostitute as a human trafficking victim is 2 different worlds. They're all victims, don't get me wrong. But when you talk about someone in debt to a criminal organization, it really should be a terrorist organization in a foreign country for years or decades. We've never seen that. Never. We're in a whole new realm. And when you talk about people being forced into commercial sex to pay off a debt against their will, that's a whole new world. It's a whole new world for this country. And we better wake up. We better get real tough real fast, because I mean it, far beyond commercial sex, of people voluntarily doing something that, yes, they're victims of, no doubt. But it's a different world when you are forced to do something you don't want to do. And that is the realm of where we have gone in the country now as a result of opening our borders up. And we're at a whole new level of human trafficking, and most Americans are not aware of it. And let me tell you how overwhelming this is going to be. You're going to see new federal agencies being created as a result of this.
Yeah, and we don't even know, we don't know how to cope with this. And what do you do? What are we going to do with these kids that are in the system that, with the child sex trafficking? I mean, this is a crisis of conscience for human beings right now too, because we've walked away from God. I can't even imagine people that are willing to harm another human being. And this goes down to individual choices too, for the people that are out there. The government is a reflection of the people and or what we are willing to allow, or our apathy in many cases. but also who are all these people that are procuring, that are procuring human beings for nefarious activities? And are these
Well, a lot of them are
down on them?
Look, it's this stuff isn't difficult. I mean, you can clearly see the path going from the cartels to the alien smuggling organizations to U.S.-based street gangs and U.S.-based street gangs, and taking these people and moving them into the sex trade all over the country. I mean, we have moved in millions of people who are indebted. Now, think of this: millions who are indebted to these cartels. They have no skill set. So where do you think the women are going to go? Because they've got to make their payment every other week or once a month. Many of them are going to go into the commercial sex. Where are the men going to go? Again, no assets. I mean, no skill set. So what are they going to do? They're going to go into the drug trade. They're going to go into the crime trade. I mean, when you hear me say the public safety threat that we are under is at a level we've never seen before, this is what I'm talking about. And this is what, look, this is the job of the Homeland Security enterprise. You got 19,000 law enforcement agencies across the country. I can put on two hands the number of police chiefs, directors, commissioners, colonels that are speaking publicly right now.
Why are they not speaking about this?
It's a major leadership failure. It's funny you mentioned that. I was actually talking to Sheriff Mark Lamb about it, and the sheriff of Cochise County, Daniels, just this week about it. I mean, it's stunning. I think many people are fearful of losing jobs. We have a lack of leadership in this country like we've never seen, but it doesn't matter. It's all going to come out. You have to remember, I'm at the forefront of it. I'm living and breathing it down here. I'm on the ground. I'm seeing it. I'm interviewing these people. I'm getting it out on Newsmax. I'm getting it out on national news. The problem, though, is if you're on the left, you watch CNN and MSNBC, and they don't show you this. They don't show you what's taking place down here. And I'm on your border every other week. I'm embedding with law enforcement. I'm riding along with them. I'm on the front lines. I'm seeing it. And I'm warning everyone. I have been since February of 21 when this started on this human trafficking wave that's about to hit us. I have warned and warned. Now everyone's starting to see it. But to what degree of damage? Because let me tell you where it ends. Let me tell you where this ends. When the folks who have come here from other countries don't have anyone else to start using, they're going to start using Americans who are down and out, just like where I'm going now in Kensington. People who are suffering, who are in need of money. I mean, this is going to proliferate our country. We have to take extreme aggressive action against it. I'm talking death penalties to people who are involved in the human slave trade. I'm talking death penalties if you are involved in selling or manufacturing fentanyl. I mean, we're in a whole new world here, and yet we've legalized most of the drugs that we're talking about. It's legal. I mean, you've got open air markets where people are shooting up in Philly right now. It's not illegal to do that. They let them do it all day long. So we're in a whole new world where we're about to go. And don't take my word for it. Take a few minutes tonight. Look up Kensington, Philadelphia, and look at what's a human tragedy, the like of which most Americans have never seen. This is my second time going back up there. And I was stunned on it. When I went up there last year, they told me I was the first person who was a national correspondent to even come up. I mean, it's crazy. Most of the people that you see recording what's happening in Kensington are independent journalists trying to get it out on all of these social media.
Just even looking at the videos that are out there too.
It's heart-wrenching. Absolute heart-wrenching.
Very, very sad.
It looks like a bomb has gone off. It really does. I mean, I'm not kidding you. If you could see the amount of trash, when you drive down there, you run over the needles. And a lot of, the little caps that go over the needles, they are literally everywhere. You can hear them crunching under the tires when you drive through the park area.
Dang.
It is a level of tragedy. This is fentanyl. Look, I'm an old narcotics agent. I spent many years in DPS narcotics, and I was stationed in Houston. I was stationed in San Antonio and in Austin. And I've been in these heroin dens. This fentanyl crisis and what it does to people, it is a human tragedy, the likes of which I've never seen.
Yeah, they're calling them zombies. When you see people.
Let me tell you what I see, and I mean this. I see a mother and a father destroyed because their child is out here. That's what I see, because I'm the one that's talking to them. I'll tell you what else I see out here. I see children who are destroyed because their mothers or their fathers are out here on the streets. If you could see how horrible these drugs are, when I tell you, you know, this stuff, let me tell you where this ends up. They end up cutting off limbs because they get infections, and they have to cut off a lot of their arms, their legs, their feet, start at their feet, start working. Eventually it kills them. Here's the other problem with this. We have no historical data to tell us those that survive this, what is it doing to their bodies? What is it doing to their brain? Now, I can tell you the methamphetamine we do have, because the meth that's coming from the Sinaloa cartel and CJ&G right now is P2P dope. And you may remember in the late 80s, mid 80s, when we used to have those commercials and it was a frying pan and say, this is your brain. And then they cracked the egg and it said, is your brain on drugs?
Yeah,
well, that was P2P dope. It truly cooked the brain. And what the cartels have done, Sinaloans and CJ&G specifically, they're bringing in P2P from China and many other countries, which you're not told about again from your federal government, because they want you to hate China so bad. And I'm not against that, but I'm just telling you it's far more prolific. Let me tell you, that methamphetamine, and it is pouring across our border in numbers I've never witnessed in my entire law enforcement career. So the damage here to citizens is going to be tremendous, not only in the short run, but in the long run. And we have no clinical historical data to tell us what that damage looks like, what's the life expectancy of these folks who are able to survive it, the few of them. We're in a whole new world in so many areas.
Yeah, so it's not just in somebody else's, it's just somebody else's problem anymore. It's all of our problems, and it's going to reach every single person out there. And it's unfortunate. The chat's going on, and it said Detroit gangs are starting to show up here, which is in West Michigan. That's Leb from West Michigan, and Charlotte's on here. We have a gangster as president, and Soros swines in Michigan being drugged in bars are up as well. They are dumping all the bad and mentally ill at the border. Maybe the Twilight Sheeples will wake up and get their butts when their butts get hijacked. And these kids are rented kids over and over again. Whitmer is in it, and slaves to Whitmer's globalist Michigan. Coup d'etat for the elites. Adrenochrome vampires are real. Some of the nonprofits and some safe houses contribute to the cycle of human trafficking. That seems to be a pretty much an overriding thing too. That actually, I've talked to several people who have said that it was the system. They were wherever you go looking for help. Quite often, those are the actual organizations that are contributing to the problem and actually trafficking people. So when it's based on money, we have no idea, and there's no accountability. Nobody seems to have any reporting. I found one article that Bethany Christian Services in Michigan, actually there was like 85 kids at the border that were lost, and they show up here at Bethany with no trail. They didn't even know who they were, how they got here. If that's happening in one of these organizations, that all of a sudden kids pop up somewhere, how many have they not found? And how confident are you that 85,000 is a real number? Could it be much, much higher than that?
No, it is much higher, because the 85,000 that the government admitted to, that information was, I think, a year and a half old now.
Yeah, it seems a little bit unrealistic. It seems pretty unrealistic that they're talking 85,000 when we're talking, 17 or so million aliens, illegal aliens that have crossed the border. And,
I'll tell you a great story, because we keep thinking about our own government. Let me give you the underworld's analogy of this. So when the exemptions were created that allowed family units to come into the country, well, single males needed a family unit. Single females needed a child to be able to be considered a family unit, right? So when you would come into the stash houses on the Mike side, on the Mexico side, and you had multiple children, the cartel would take your other children. You'd be allowed to keep the one, but they would take your other children. And then what they would do is they would take those kids and put them with these other individuals. And I'll never forget this. The way I learned about this, I was interviewing a Zeta. And I said, okay, so where is this happening? He gave me the locations at the Zeta.
Why was he talking to you?
Oh, I still work with many of them. You got to remember, my specialty is the cartels. The awards you see behind me is me fighting them in Mexico. Many of them don't agree with what has happened. And they will tell you, oh, absolutely. They will tell you themselves, you have to act. You have to do something. We are out of control.
Okay, go back to the story now. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I really have all these questions in my head, and I don't even know where to start because there's so many of them.
So I'm
Go back to
interviewing
the
him,
story
and
with
I'm
the kids being
talking to
separated.
him, and he was telling me about how they're taking these children and then they're giving them to these other men, and these men have to pay money to the cartel. It's all about making more money, and then they cross them into the U.S. And I asked him, I'll never forget this. I said, okay, so how does the parents get the children back once they cross into the U.S., you know? So he goes, and I'll never forget this. He looks at me and he goes, nobody gives a fuck. Please understand, you are up against people who will burn people's faces off while they're screaming for their life. They'll literally cut their hearts out and eat them. We are up against animals. And the American public hasn't been told. They have been devastating the Mexican citizens for years. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Mexican citizens have been slaughtered like cattle. You can go on any YouTube channel, any TikTok channel, and see the daily killings as they're brutally chopping people's heads off, cutting their faces off, putting their faces over their heads. I mean, they're not doing this for Allah. They're doing this for pure meanness, for power. And they walk among us now. So there is a reason that I work 7 days a week. There is a reason that I'm on your border every other week and then traveling to the internal parts of this country. There's a reason I'm briefing legislators privately, because I understand our common enemy very, very well. And you have to understand, if you want to know where this ends and what's coming, look to Mexico, because that is what is coming here if we don't stop.
I think it's important for people to kind of realize and actually see these things. You know, I've tried to show things to wake people up a little bit, because the protected, pretty much the protected status that we live in all the time. I mean, everything's sanitized here in the United States, and I've tried to show quite a bit of this on and off. You know, not so much that people are completely shocked, but enough that they can wake up on it. Is there a video or something like that out there that would actually show something that would be...
go to X. I'll just give you some that'll just, you can watch some of this right now. Go to X and then type in all source news. They do, and for those of you watching right now, they do some great work on cartels. And what happens is the cartels post their own propaganda. That's what they do. They have they have propaganda cells. We call them cartels. In Mexico, they call them the company. So you have bankers, you have accountants, you have lawyers who run their organizations, you have entire propaganda cells, you have the Halcon networks, which look and watch for everything. You have sicarios who kill people, you have training divisions, you have entire enforcement wings. And so you can go through those videos on All Source News and you can see all of the different things. They're holding people captive, they're killing people, they're chopping their faces off, they're involved in shootings. You can see the first, second, third, and fourth generation armored cars that they're leveraging. You know, we have gun battles on our border right now daily, last several hours, because Cartel del Noreste, formerly known as the Zetas, and Cartel de Golfo have been at war for over 2 years now. But how many Americans hear about it every day?
Yeah, like nobody.
You know,
do you have the ability to share that on your computer, the All Source News on X?
I don't, because I'm on my cell phone. I'm not on my computer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the computer that I'm on right now, I don't have an X account on that, so
I got you.
So, but I'll put it out.
You can go to my social media too. If you go to Jaeson Jones, and you can go down, you can see some of those things. It's JAESON_Jones. You can go to TikTok, you can go to X, you can go to Instagram, and you'll see some of them there as well.
Let's see.
But usually when they're chopping their heads off, they've banned me so much now that I don't post too much of the violence anymore like I used to. LinkedIn finally said, Jaeson, just don't come back ever. Like, just stop. Don't ever come back.
Well, you know what? I gotta tell you, it's like, yeah, I'm not getting it to come up here. So, let's see.
And I'll tell the folks, if you're interested in what's happening at the cartels too, go to Borderland Beat, what we call the BB, or Borderland Beat. They do great work to really illuminate the internals of the cartel structures. Fantastic work, actually. Breitbart's Cartel Chronicles, they also do really good work as well. If you're interested in seeing what's taking place in Mexico that's going to impact us, because they all walk among us. They're here. I mean, DEA at least finally admitted, I give them credit, that they're in all 50 states.
Well, that's good. You know, there's so many things that people are afraid to talk about. Okay, so here's Borderland Beat. I think this looks like a great site. but people are truly afraid to talk about it because unfortunately a lot of people don't want to look at reality. They want to stay in their comfortable zone and not be bothered by a lot of this. And there's people out there, brave people such as yourself who are in it every day. And I'm pretty sure you're never going to quit trying to expose this and end this, just because once you see some of this stuff, you can never unsee it. I saw when I first got into researching, I saw a woman that was dismembered by the cartels, and I saw a little boy who they did rip his heart out while it was beating. He was laying on his dad's chest. And I can tell you right now, I thought my heart was going to stop. I was like, and I really had to pray about this. I'm like, God, why? Why, first of all, why would I see this? And it just sort of popped up. And why, what do I even do with this? And it was very direct and to the point that we have to have some people that are willing to look at this and stand unwavering to see their demise and see this be completely eradicated from the earth without wavering on this. And I feel as you do that we absolutely need to come down on this like there's no tomorrow. There can be no mercy on this type of crime and this mindset. This is a sickness that I don't think we can even just, get our arms around this. When a person is a psychopath and likes to harm other people, there's no rehabilitation from that. You're not going to change their mind. It's just like Jeffrey Dahmer said. He said, if you let me out today, I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow. I don't see them turning around. Would you agree with that?
They will tell you that they're out of control. They can't turn around. They're at war. That's their statement, not mine. And all you have to do is talk to them. They'll tell you. I mean, my God, they post it. and let me tell you another thing. When you start really looking into this, one thing I want you to notice, right before they chop their heads off, as they're doing the propaganda videos, they got all the gunmen around them, and they look like military, etc. Right before they kill them, do you ever notice they never fight? You know why they don't fight?
No, I don't. I don't know the things that you know, so you really need to tell me.
They because they've been mock killing them for days, so they
really?
don't know when it's coming. Oh yeah, they've been torturing them, getting every bit of information out of them. They think they've been dead 52 times, etc. before, and so when it finally comes, they're not expecting it.
It's probably, I hate to say it, it's probably a relief.
I will tell you, I've been at it for 8 years. When I started, I was made fun of. I was ostracized. I was told how I had no understanding of global threats. I can't tell you. And now America's finally paying attention, but to what degree now? Look at the damage done to the nation, damage done to the American people. When we opened our borders to a underworld crime wave with tentacles into things that Americans, all the things that we've been protected from with our borders and our oceans is now among us. It's here. And so, if we don't.
The title of the X channel again.
Yeah, All Source News.
Okay, guys.
They do a really good job to post every day a lot of the propaganda videos, and you can see just the extreme violence of how they're battling, their structures, their two-way encrypted global communication radios that Middle East cartels don't even have. Middle East terrorist organizations don't even have. Their first, second, third, fourth generation armored vehicles, surface to air missiles, light anti-tank weapons, RPGs, 50 caliber belt-fed machine guns. You'll see it all. Things that we've been dealing with on the Texas border for years, as the federal government said, as long as it stays in Mexico. We seized our first light anti-tank weapon in Starr County, Texas, back in 2013. So, look, the cartel's influence here into Texas and into our country has been happening for some time. The problem is the American public hasn't been told. Now you know why I went public.
Well, it's really interesting because the first things I pulled up over here on X was that All Source News is fake. So that's somebody trying to hide it and discredit them. It looks like I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research here to find. Oh, let's see. I think I might have. Oh, I actually found it. Here we go. So I'm going to follow All Source News, and we'll see what else we can find here, because I think that slap in the face of actual reality is going to be real helpful to actually getting getting things out there. Because I tell you what, it got my attention when I saw it probably 7 years ago. It was probably seven years ago that I really got into 7 or 8 that I really got into researching seriously into the topics of concern in the United States. Because I'm like everybody else. You go through life and things aren't the way that they are. But I was running companies and taking care of my family and such. And all of a sudden, the rightful president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, steps into the arena. And I literally hated every one of these politicians out there. Like, they're all a bunch of liars, cheats, and thieves. Didn't feel like I could never get behind anybody, a party, nothing, because it's all a sham. And he steps onto the stage, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get behind this guy. And I started getting on Twitter at the time. And absolutely, I was on there all the time. I was in a couple of research groups that, you might say we were anonymous, and we would be out there researching, and we were on there 24/7. Somebody was online looking for things. And then if something big broke, we would come together and see this. And walking into this, even though there are quite a few of us now that are awake, there's a significant portion of people that are still in denial. Not just on, not on the border or the drugs, but on so many levels. And I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. The apathy out there of hiding in their own little spaces is got to come to an end. People have to get in the games, whether it's running for office, because we need some honest people that can get past this and say, you know what, things suck. So if I'm the only one that's standing up doing it, that's enough. We're responsible for those choices, and everybody needs to come forward, but we need to know what we're fighting against. And, you being willing to come on Brandenburg News Network is really a big thing, because people need to hear the truth of people that are working, in the field, on location, and actually doing the work. And I really, really appreciate it. But I'm going to search through this, and I'm going to see what I come up with here, and I'll post it. I'll post it on my X channel and my Telegram channel. I don't censor anything. Anything can be said here or shown on BNN, and the only one that can take it down is me, which that isn't going to happen in our pursuit of waking people up. So I appreciate you very much sharing this. So with that said, is there anything else that you want to add to this today? And you're welcome to come on anytime. I'd love to get deeper into some of these subjects and talk about these gangs like Santa Muerte and why they think this way, because it's alien, it's foreign to us on thinking on how, or for the average American, on how this actually works. And I think this is important to know.
Well, it is, and I'm happy to cover that, because you got to ask yourself, how can you kill a baby? How do you chop people's heads off while they're screaming for their life? Well, many of these people are being offered to the underworld. That is, they're praying to what they call the holy death. These are offerings. And and that virus, and I say that all the time, I know, but it's true. It is the largest growing cult in the world right now.
Santa Muerte.
It is. And because we opened our borders to the world and the world's problems, all of that underworld has pushed Santa Muerte throughout our country as well. And that's why I've gone public and been briefing a lot of the faith-based communities around the country. That's actually where you and I met, because that's what I've been doing, trying to warn them and to get them to fight back against this evil, because it really is truly a good versus evil fight. It is. That they are praying to the underworld. We had a mass murder of 5 people in Houston, Texas, actually Cleveland, Texas, just outside of Houston. And the individual that did it also shot and killed a 9-year-old boy. In his home, he had a massive Santa Muerte shrine and was a part of Cartel de Golfo, known as CDG. This is what we're dealing with now. And Americans have to understand that there's a whole different side of this. But here's what I'll close with. Solutions for you to understand that when we are on the right path to start to win this is that first we get the cartels designated as foreign terrorist organizations. It's not about war. It's about authorities. We need new authorities and tools of national power to be able to go after them. That's why I've been going and doing anything I can, what I call blitzkrieg media, illuminating what their operations are and going to the border and collecting videos to show it. Because I'm a firm believer you don't have to sell the border issue. It sells itself if you can just show it to the American people. That's the key. And when we get the terrorism designation, that is when we're going to get the authorities to finally do what needs to be done globally. Domestically, because of the Fourth Amendment, we're always going to move very slow by design. But what the terrorism designation does is it allows us to remove people who are a terrorist out of our country very rapidly. But what stunned most of your viewers, Don, is that most of these cartels members are here on a visa. Remember, they got money. They can pay for it. So we can revoke that visa and get them out of the country rather than work a 2-year case on them and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, trying to make a case on them. That puts speed into our system. Second, you've heard the term for years that we need to follow the money and conduct follow the money investigations. Well, I got news for everybody. We've been doing that for 20 plus years. The problem that you've not been told by these pundits is that the system moves very slow by design because of Fourth Amendment. And if we want it that way domestically, we want that. But globally, it will allow us to absolutely put speed in the system and go after their bank accounts, after their assets, and take it real time. I don't have to work a 2-year case on it now and spend millions of US taxpayer dollars. And third and final, don't look at the cartels as a US-Mexico problem, because that's a 1980s, 1990s model. Today, they are operating globally, as you've heard me talk about. So we've got to limit that mobility. And now we can put them on no-fly lists. Now we can put them on lists so that they can't travel via sea as well. So think of what we've done. We put them in a box back into Mexico, right? We are working with unified command partners globally to go after them if we get the terrorism designation. Second, we're going after their assets. We're limiting that mobility, and then we're removing them from our country very rapidly, very quickly. How we go after the Sinaloa cartel because of the network design with which they are, it's not how we're going to go after Cartel de Golfo and each of the other cartels, because their synergy is much different. And you want to attack those, what we call key nodes. And I won't go into it farther than that, except to say this. If you're watching right now, the solution to this is the terrorism designation, because it gives us all those authorities that you heard me talk about and many more. The second part of this, we have to have a national strategy to go after them, domestically and globally. And it has to have funding backed by a whole new transnational crime network that's going to focus on that and get rid of these old models that don't work. But the bigger part of this is that these people have been responsible for killing hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of Americans just in the last few years. Never mind the amount of Mexican citizens they've brutally hurt and killed, and globally. Families have been destroyed, and we're coming for them. And these people need to know it. And they need to know that the world's best are going to hunt them down wherever they are in the world, and that's the way it's going to be. And we will get this done. We will get this shit done. It's going to take a while. It will get worse before it gets better. But for you sitting at home right now, the very first thing you need to know that we are on the right path and your government's no longer bullshitting you is when we get the authorities to do what we need to do. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I thank you. Do you have is there somewhere I could see a current model that is written down that would probably work?
No. Yes, actually, that's not true. There is a couple of things that we've done. We did the first privately funded threat assessment for the federal government, and I'll get you that so that you can push that out, because I thought that would help tremendously with a lot of the public officials, and they did nothing. They did nothing with it. And I want everyone to know one thing too. I've briefed a lot of public officials privately, both on the left and on the right, and you'd be stunned. I just did it again in Arizona. I was just there with 19 legislators. And before I brief them now, I asked them this question. When was the last time you were briefed, either by the federal agencies or the U.S. intelligence agencies, classified or unclassified, on what's taken place? You'd be stunned. If you're on the left, you're being briefed by MSNBC and CNN. If you're on the right, you are being briefed by Fox News. Unless you're part of certain select committees, you are not receiving the classified briefing. So what I'm telling you isn't even getting to most of the people that vote for us. Our system is completely flawed.
It's completely broken.
Please hear me. What I find is most of these people, I'll show all the videos of everything you and I have been talking about. And they'll literally look at me and say, my God, Jason, when did this start? They have no clue. No clue. So what I have found is most of this is not conspiratorial. Most of this is just pure, just simply not having a damn clue what's happening in the world and watching news agencies thinking you're learning what's happening. That's where we are. So that's why we're educating the country. This is why Border 911 exists. This is why I travel every single week, and I'm briefing legislators, I'm briefing citizens on what's happening. But more importantly, I'm showing it, because I'm a firm believer. Don't listen to anything I say. Look at what I show you.
Well, I really appreciate that. So I always end the show with prayers. If do you mind if I say a prayer to end the show here with you?
Thank you. Yes.
All right,
Wonderful.
thanks.
Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity to do good works and to be part of the fight here to end this evil that has just so gripped our nation in this world. And we ask your blessings on Jeff and Bob and Jaeson and Jaeson in their fight to right things in the United States of America and across the world. I ask your protection for Jaeson and Border 911 and all the people that he's fighting with as they address these really, really horrific circumstances where people are being hurt. We ask that you would bring it to a complete stop, and that the people that are involved in this, that they would truly, with a one last chance, turn themselves to you, and which is their only chance of having their hearts changed. We ask that you would continue to bless people across the nation, that you would give your favor on the efforts that anyone is making to right this nation. And we thank you for everything you've done with us. You've been a wonderful friend for us, and we want to be a friend to you. We love you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
So, well, thank you for coming on here. So with that said, I'm going to go to everybody, go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com, because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever not conceded in the history of the United States. And I would like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, about that. But with that said, there's a lot of good people out there working to right the things around us that we see that are wrong. And there's a lot of heartbreak right now. I'm hearing it. I'm seeing it. I talked to a woman, I talked about it earlier on my channel, but I talked to a woman who was trafficked through CPS on the plane that I was on yesterday. And I listened for 2.5 hours. I'm trying to get her to talk about it, because she isn't even talking about this until now. And she's my age. And the reality of her foster dad when she was abandoned by her mom and dad, forcing her to give oral sex to her foster father when she didn't get the dishes clean enough. That was a punishment. If she didn't get them clean, really, she had double duty. And the horrific treatment that we are having, not just at the border, but in human trafficking within the system, these horrible people that are in the seats of power. And I'm going to go back to this. We are going to have to enforce the law and the highest possible punishment available, and that's death penalty for treason, for crimes against humanity, and the whole 10 yards. We have got to have a hard line on this, because this isn't going to stop. This bleeding heart liberal bullshit that's out there is what's brought our country to where it is right now, because it's not being addressed as an adult needs to address this. We are going to have to go after this with bared teeth, with strong resolve, and there's no backing down for this. There's no soft pawing these whole issues. We are going to have to deal with it. That's okay. We're going to deal with it. God's going to lead us through this so that we know the best possible way to end all of this pain and suffering, illegal nonsense that's going on, crimes against humanity, the destruction of this nation, the world, because this is a fight between, as Jaeson said, good and evil. It's a war against God, and we happen to be his children, so it's directed at us. There's no better way to hurt God himself than to go after his children, and that's exactly what they're doing. But we're not going to stop. We're not going to back down. And so just so you know, come join us. Get in the game. Get mad. Be pissed off about this. You should be pissed off about this. I know I am. Jaeson is. Everybody else out there that's fighting. We're pissed off. We're done with this. So with that said, remember, though, above all, that God loves you. We love you. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Make it a great day out there. Even with all these bad things going on, we can focus on the good things and realize that God's with us. He's allowing this, but it's only going to go on for so long. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, all right, everybody out of the pool. And it's going to come to a good result, because God's going to take care of this in the end times. But in the meantime, we have to do our job. So get in the game and fight for this nation, your family. And I want you to say prayers for Jaeson Jones and all he's doing, the protection down on the border, and with everyone that are fighting the cartels and such. Everyone pray for him. And if you can jump in to help him financially or whatever he's doing, please go look up his website, Jaeson Jones, and it's JAESON Jones.com, so that he needs your help. You can't sit there and look at a guy like this who's out there fighting with some people, but they're not fighting with near enough people. They need the entire United States fighting with them to end this horribleness on him. He needs you. Don't think that you're insignificant. Every single person, every single voice, every single person matters in jumping into this fight. And with that said, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, Jaeson, for coming on. Have a great day. And we'll all be praying for you and cheering you on and getting involved. Just let us know what we can do, and people will jump on to help you. So,
thank you very much. Great being with you, and God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you too. Thank you. Bye.